Hello there, Pursuing Freedom friends, and thanks for tuning in today to the 250th episode of the Pursuing Freedom podcast. You guys, I cannot believe this. I remember back in, 2016 maybe, having this impulse, a pipe dream of having a podcast one day, and then hiring a team member to my mortgage business in 2018 and saying to her, Nicole, I think I want to start a podcast. I think I need you to figure out how to do that. And guess what? She did. So thank you to Nicole Miller, one of my OG team members who is responsible for bringing this pipe dream to life way back in 2018. And now we're 250 episodes in. And I have to be honest, I am loving every bit of it. I am having so much fun running this podcast and getting to meet the extraordinary people that have been on this show over the years. Being inspired by their stories has been one of the most fulfilling parts of my journey, and it's extremely energizing. I have so much fun with it, and I hope that you as listeners are also having as much fun enjoying it. And what I wanted to highlight today to celebrate the 250th episode is the truth behind the idea that the only difference between us and the people living the life we want, or the stories we hear in these podcasts, in the books that we read, in the conferences we attend, the only difference between us and the people we're listening to is their decisions to do it, right? We didn't know how to do a podcast when we made the decision to do it. We just did it. And now here we are 250 episodes later, having a blast with it. So I want to inspire you to embrace the concept that as I'm recording this in early 2025, the theme for 2025 for me and for everyone inside my coaching community is the quantum leap. And the reality that the only thing between us and that quantum leap is the decision. We have to have the willingness, the courage to decide before we know how in order for the path to unfold. And I thought today I could share some of the highlights of my journey running this podcast and some of the stories that I heard from the guests over the years that just stuck with me permanently. And we all have this, right? We attend a workshop or we read a book or we listen to a podcast and someone says something that strikes you right in the moment you needed to hear it. There's a saying that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And it's amazing how one thing that someone says at the exact right time can be a catalyst to be a turning point in our lives, a point of no return. And this has been a theme in the past few years. When you wake up and you realize, I'm done playing small, I'm done with this mediocrity, I'm done settling for less. I know I'm meant for more, and I'm deciding to do it before I know how. And this is going to be that turning point for you. I hope that you look back someday and realize that 2025 was your point of no return, that it was the beginning, it was the turning point. The quantum leap began at some point when you woke up and you decided enough is enough. I'm ready to go big or go home. And so, what I want to do today is touch upon the 6 pillars that I feel are extremely important to the mission to design a business that actually fuels your life vision. Because if you've been listening for a while, you know that the theme at Pursuing Freedom is that the goal is to build a life you don't need a vacation from. And if you've been listening for a long time, some of these conversations that I'm going to reflect back upon are going to be familiar to you. You're going to remember them. And if you're new here to the podcast, well, welcome aboard. And I'm your host, Erin Bradley. And I'm here to help you believe in the possibility that right on the other side of a decision is the access to the portal to open you up to expansion, to exponential growth. And that some of the stories I'm going to touch upon today will hopefully inspire you as they inspired me. Because all of these individuals that have joined me over the years on the podcast are human beings, just like you and me. And what we always say is that the job title doesn't define us, right? As human beings, we have something very important in common, which is the human experience of having hopes and dreams, having uncertainty, self-doubt, overwhelm, exhaustion, burnout, right? Every single human being has experienced these feelings at some point in their life. And so truthfully, if we're all bonded by the human experience and the job title doesn't define us, then the only distinction between us and those living the life of our dreams is their decisions to do it. And so we're going to touch upon some of those stories here today and hopefully leave you inspired to take the wheel of your own life and business and say, I'm in the driver's seat now, and I'm going to decide where I go from here. whether I feel confident or not, I have the courage to say I'm choosing to go that way. So let's touch upon the 6 pillars that I like to teach within my coaching community with my clients that I think are really powerful as it relates to lifestyle and business design, one where you are in the driver's seat, you're not the passenger. So the first is having a compelling vision. And on a recent episode in 2024 with Erin Bradley, he talked about the power of a compelling vision. And I found that conversation to be really extraordinary. I ended up listening to it several times to really challenge my own vision and ask myself, am I really playing to win or am I simply playing not to lose? And it woke me up to decide as I go into 2025 that this is the year of the quantum leap, that I'm done playing small. And that was one of my favorite episodes about a compelling vision. But there's also tons of content here inside the podcast around the importance of decisiveness, of goal setting, of having a reason for taking the risk to be self-employed to begin with, because we all know this is not the easy route, right? When you go 100% commission for the very first time, you very quickly realize that you did not take the easy route. It would be much easier to go work for somebody else who has a plan in place and tells you when to be at work and what time to show up and what to do in exchange for doing so, you get paid consistent income, right? So we forego the steady paycheck in pursuit of some vision. And then oftentimes we lose sight of that vision and we find ourselves on the hamster wheel running a breakneck pace, always in a state of uncertainty, wondering if we're going to have enough, if it's going to be too much, right? And so this whole idea of getting really clear about what you want moving forward, not what you used to want, not what you think you should want based on what's realistic or based on what somebody else wants, but deep down inside in your heart and soul, what do you feel called to? And then being aware of the chatter in your brain that tries to keep you stuck playing small where you've been. Okay. The second pillar is understanding the importance of knowing who you are, which is going to help you identify your ideal clients, not trying to serve everybody. We've talked a lot about the 25% rule over the years, that 25% of people will love you no matter what, 25% never will, no matter what. And then the 50% in between are your fair weather friends, or they just haven't met you yet. And in reality, those who choose to get clear on who their 25% is, and then create a customized communication plan that looks like being of value to these people that you care about and that love you deeply, even when they don't need your services. This is the way to design a business that you love, because you're starting with human beings that bring you joy, light, and energy to your life. You're intentional about finding a way to be of value to them, which further lightens you up and brings joy to your life, because each and every one of us is a caregiver at heart and we love helping others, right? And so when we get selective around who we're trying to serve, and then we create a customized communication plan to be of value to them where they need it, even when they don't need our services, we start to multiply loving, positive, energizing relationships in our life, which is what it looks like to run a purpose-driven business, which fuels a purpose-driven life. And in doing so, what we do is we build a business founded on unapologetic authenticity, not trying to be someone we're not. It is so hard to escape the comparisonitis in this industry, looking at what's working for somebody else, attending the sales training, being given a playbook, knowing what to do, but wondering why we don't feel like it, why we're not in the mood. And this is the authenticity piece that needs to be explored and unpacked. Because when you're running a business on unapologetic authenticity, you're coming from a place of love, contribution, connection, engagement, impact, and your business and your money flows as the byproduct of the level of contribution you make in your community. The third pillar is all about time management, scheduling, boundaries, and this is a really tough one. We are in an industry, if you're in the real estate space, that feels very much on call. And when you're starting out in the business, you don't want to miss any opportunities. So you find yourself checking your phone, checking your email, checking the alerts, checking in the red lights, checking while you're still in bed in the morning, when you're in bed at night, while you're watching TV, while you're waiting in line. You're always looking, thinking that the external world is going to deliver the abundance that you desire and deserve, when in fact, you claiming your time freedom is the first step to experiencing the freedom that you were craving when you took this leap of faith. Because again, when you went 100% commission, deep down inside, you were craving some freedom and flexibility in your schedule. But then how many of us spend 7 days a week, 365 days a year tethered to our phones? Well, when do we claim that freedom that we crave? Because it's not the external world's job to deliver that to us. It's ours for the taking. So we're going to talk about some people that have really shared some great insights around this. The fourth pillar is the importance of systems and automations in order to streamline your business. Because without systems and automations, you are the bottleneck, right? You only have so many hours in the day. There's a limit to your personal capacity. But there's not a limit to your capacity for abundance. There's only a limit to your capacity of time, energy, and enthusiasm. And as the demands of your business start to increase or things happen in your personal life, you're going to inevitably see inconsistency in the execution. And that's where systems and automations come in. They help to improve consistency in execution, which improves consistency in your outcomes, which creates space to be able to afford to think bigger in your life and your business because it's not you as the sole bottleneck, which brings us into pillar number 5, which is the importance of leverage and scaling. Because again, as you have bigger fish to fry, more clients coming in the door, you're inevitably going to have to postpone smaller tasks like writing those handwritten notes, which have an impact on the hearts and minds of the people in your community, or making those phone calls, or planning those events, or picking up those gifts. There's so much that could be done that you simply don't have the time for when you're serving the high level needs of your clients. And so when it's time to enlist the help of others is when you want to take your business and life to the next level while having more time freedom without compromising the impact that you desire to have, because you simply cannot do it all and do it all well. And the last pillar is then what? So do you have a plan for turning your active income into passive income so that someday you can stop trading your hours for dollars? And this is why I started really diversifying the podcast and the guests that I started to invite onto the show. Because in the early years, it was all about how do we create that predictable growth in our business? How do we create consistent income, right? A lot of people listening are craving consistent income and predictable growth. So we need a plan for that. And then once the money starts flowing in and your time becomes compromised, you really need to start looking at those systems and scale. Otherwise, you just keep hitting your head against the ceiling, burning out, and then wondering if it's even worth it to desire to grow your business if it results in the sacrifice of you as the bottleneck, right? But once we've got that going and we start to have people in place and we start to see that our business can grow exponentially when we remove ourselves as the bottleneck and we have good systems and people to run those systems, then we need to have a plan for what we're doing with the dollars that are coming in. Otherwise, we're tethered to this business indefinitely and we never experience the true freedom, right? The financial independence and the time freedom that I think was the catalyst for each and every one of us taking this leap of faith to begin with. And so I started bringing on guests who had achieved early retirement from their W-2s or from their different careers through different types of passive investing so that they can share their stories to inspire in you that it's not only possible, but it's available far faster than you can imagine possible if you have a plan in place and if you have the right teachers to help you along the way. So I'm a huge fan of bringing other speakers and coaches and authors onto the show to bring different perspectives and different strategies to help you unlock the access to that portal that represents your quantum leap in your life, your relationships, your health, your business, financial. So I'm going to share a couple of my very favorite guests and some of the takeaways that I had and why I think they're so powerful to go back and listen to. One of my favorites is my old friend, Maria Vitale. And her story is extraordinary because so many times I'm talking to people that I'm coaching inside of my community or one-on-one who feel like they don't have a choice as it relates to their schedule, their time management, and their boundaries. They feel that they have to, words like I have to, I need to, I should. And they allow themselves to be a passenger on the speeding train of the external world's agendas out of fear of what might go wrong if they take their foot off the gas for 1 minute or step off the hamster wheel. Well, Maria is an example of someone who had unapologetic commitment to her priorities. So when she started out in the real estate space, it was after her husband left her with a week old and a 2-year-old. She was now a single mom and she had to move in with her mom into her basement and she needed to find a way to make money. Can you even imagine? I'm going to repeat that. She was left with a 2-week-old and a 2-year-old. The first thing she did was hire a coach, which is interesting because, again, most people feel like they have to earn the right to hire the coach. Someday I'll get a coach when I can afford it. Those who invest in themselves right out of the gates have much faster trajectory to success. And we know this because in any other industry, if you wanted to earn more money in a different industry, if you wanted to become a doctor or get a raise or get a promotion or become certified to do something, what's the first thing you do? You go to school for it. But in the real estate space, we resist the urge to invest in ourselves and instead think that we're going to wing it. Well, she invested in herself right away. She got a plan. She committed to the plan. And before long, she was closing 8 transactions a month in a very short amount of time as a real estate agent, which is extraordinary, right? But more importantly, she made a decision she wasn't going to work in the summertime. Now, you might hear that and cringe. She decided not to work in the summertime because she wanted to spend time with her boys. Okay, that was her number one priority. And the reason she became a real estate agent was to have the time freedom to be with her boys. So I want you to let that sink in. What was your reason to go 100% commission? And then Carrie Heibel-Briner, who came on the show years later and talked about for 10 years, she worked 24/7. She said her kids would see her on her phone at their sporting events, constantly tethered to her laptop, tethered to her work. Her work was becoming like the whale in the bathtub, infiltrating every nook and cranny of her life, consuming her. And one day, after 10 years of this, she woke up and realized that her actions were not a reflection of her true priorities. And when she said that on the show, I remember it hit me right in the gut. Are your actions a reflection of your true priorities? Because Maria's sure were. And you might think I would go out of business if I took my summers off. Well, it's not the case. She's a top producing luxury agent and a keynote speaker all over the world. The choice to honor your priorities will not put you out of business. It will actually be the thing that helps you thrive. So this is unapologetic authenticity at its core. Lee Brown, another amazing guest. She joined me twice on the podcast. I'll never forget. She was talking about the same thing, that for a long time, she allowed her work to consume her life. And then she made a decision. Again, it's all about decisiveness. She made a decision to have some boundaries. And one day she got a call from somebody who wanted to go see a property. And in her old way of doing things, she would have dropped her plans to go have dinner with her mom and go show that property and say, sorry, mom. But instead, she told the client, I have dinner plans with my mom. I can take you another time or I can have somebody else take you. And guess what? Nothing went wrong. She honored her priorities. She chose her family, and her business has never suffered as a result of this. These are choices. Let's talk about systems and automations for a minute. Both Adrienne Green and her husband, Harley Green, have joined me on the podcast. And their story is fascinating. Adrienne was a top producing real estate agent on the East Coast who had used virtual assistants to help her scale her business and create amazing systems. And they started investing in real estate and they decided to move to Knoxville, Tennessee, where they wanted to build a real estate portfolio, which meant that Adrienne was starting her real estate sales business from scratch in an area that she knew nobody. And she used the same systems and scale that she had used to build her business and become a top producer in her previous location to grow and scale and then sell her real estate business in less than 3 years. That's right. Can you imagine selling your business right now? What would you have to sell? If it's all you, it's not a saleable asset. But if you have a money-making machine, a well-oiled machine, that has systems and people in place to run the systems and a brand that's been well organized, you actually have a saleable asset. And Adrienne was able to sell her business so that she and her husband Harley and their 3 young kids could now live an international location independent lifestyle. They're spending 3 months at a time in different countries all over the world. And then they went on to develop a VA sourcing company to help real estate professionals like yourself find a virtual assistant. And that's how I found my virtual assistant, is through Harley's company, Workergenics. So these are so important because Even as I run my own business, I find myself not taking my own advice at times and telling myself, I should be doing more of that. I should be doing more of that. I hear what someone else is doing and I'm inspired by what they're doing. And then I beat myself up because I'm not doing it well enough and I'm going to commit. I promise I'm going to commit. I just have to. I just need to. I know everybody listening has the same chatter going on in your brains. The challenge then is if you're not doing it consistently, instead of beating yourself up into it, what would it look like to enlist the help of somebody else to take your vision and execute with 100% consistency? I want you to think about all the things in your life and business that are not happening with 100% consistency, and then ask yourself, if it was happening with 100% consistency, even if only 80% as good as I think I'm doing it, which by the way, might be really 20% consistently, which is not very good, right? But if somebody else could do it with 100% consistency, would it improve the results in my business? Could I impact more hearts and minds? Could I reach more people with more handwritten notes and gifts and events and social media and content and mailers and e-newsletters, right? And if I'm not doing it consistently, instead of wrestling with that reality, why don't I just outsource it and expect that the increased execution and consistency and reach and visibility and engagement is going to create an ROI that far exceeds my investment? In other words, it's not going to cost me to run my business better. It's costing me not to. And same goes for you. It's not going to cost you to invest in yourself, whether that be to hire a coach, to join a community, to hire an assistant, to pay for technology. It is not going to cost you. It's costing you not to, because the way you've always done it has gotten you where you are. And if you're sitting here listening, thinking all these things sound amazing, I wish I could sell my business and travel the world. I wish I could take my summers off. Guess what? You can. Because the only difference between you and these people that I'm talking about is their decision to do it. What about this concept of hiring somebody? This is a big one. Scaling the business. I remember having a woman named Kelly Moy on my podcast many, many years ago. She was the Realtor of the Year in Boulder, Colorado. And her story is really fascinating. She had gotten her real estate license at the young age of 21 years old. And guess what the first thing she did was? She hired an assistant. I know what you're thinking. What? That's insane. But the thing is, prior to getting her license, she was working for a real estate coaching company and she was sitting in the back of the room at the conferences, checking people in and handing out their binders for the conference. And she listened for years as the trainer explained that the assistant is a critical piece of a successful business because they immediately remove the bottleneck and open you up to that exponential growth and the expansion. And some people might think, man, I wish I had the confidence. Well, you don't need to wish you had the confidence. You just have to have the courage to decide. You're not marrying the decision. It's just an experiment. And that's something that my friend Mandy McAllister talked about. Mandy's podcast, which was released in 2024, was one of my most listened to episodes. And when I asked her about having the courage to take the leap and leave her W-2 to become a full-time real estate investor, she said, I decided to believe that this is not necessarily a permanent thing. I'm just going to treat it like an experiment. It doesn't have to be forever, and I can take the pressure off by removing the permanence. And so we explore what's the worst case scenario of making this decision? What's the worst case scenario of investing in ourselves, investing in our business? Willing to dream, right? Willing to envision the possibility that exponential growth, the quantum leap, is mine for the grabbing. And usually that worst case scenario is you come back to where you are right now. So if there's something you feel called to do, whether it's implementing better systems, whether it's claiming your time freedom and implementing boundaries around your schedule, hiring an assistant, you're going to be scared at first. But all of these people are here to help you believe that if they can do it, so can you. That's why we say inside of my coaching community, the power of community is that you can borrow the belief you see in someone else. You can see someone else doing something, pushing through their comfort zone, getting results and saying, holy cow, I watched that all unfold. I saw that they were scared. I saw them muster up the courage to do it anyway. And now I see on the other side that it's working really well. In fact, better than they ever could have imagined. So if they can do it, why not me? And that's what I want for all of us, is not to be inspiration junkies. Don't waste your time listening to these podcasts. getting inspired, and then thinking must be nice for them. It must have been easier for them. Because when you get in the room with people, when you have the conversations with the people that are achieving at higher and higher levels, maybe at levels that you only dream of, what you'll find is their story, that they became the hero in their own story at some point when they said, yes, I'm scared, but I'm going to do it anyway. Because what's the worst case scenario? And nothing is permanent. I can always pivot. I can always change my mind, but I'm willing to explore. Wally Alibieri, a mortgage professional, came on the podcast in 2024. And it was interesting because he was being challenged that his strategy for simplifying success and creating exponential growth wouldn't work in 2024, that it was probably only successful because of previous markets. And since the market had shifted, his strategy probably wouldn't work in this current market. And so he took that on as a challenge and he did a little experiment and he enlisted his assistant to schedule calls, reviews for his mortgage clients. And those appointments were set on his calendar in little windows of time that he made available a couple hours a day, a couple hours a week, which meant that he didn't waste time making 25 to 50 phone calls a week, getting voicemails, leaving voicemails, and never connecting with people. The only appointments he had were those that were set by his assistant, much like the doctor's office does for us, right? And that meant when he looked at his calendar and he had calls scheduled with some of his favorite past clients, he already knew they were saying yes to that appointment. He didn't have to waste his time second guessing or having call anxiety or resisting. He simply created a system so that the calls could be scheduled so that he could show up as the high level advisor, the high level professional that he is, and have these conversations with his clients. Well, guess what happened? Within 3 months, he was closing 10 million to 14 million a month. That's right. 10 million in volume to 14 million in volume per month in 2024. Why? Because he decided to make a game of it. He decided to have a little fun with it. The stories go on, but the key takeaways are simple. Number one, when was the last time you checked in on your priorities? When was the last time you asked yourself, what was I thinking when I took this leap of faith? What was I after? And am I proving it with my actions? Number two, every single one of these people invested in themselves in some capacity, and they still do to this day. I don't know a single successful person that doesn't still have at least one, if not many, strategic coaches, mentors, communities, mastermind groups, including myself. And most importantly, what I want you to think about is that there's nothing different between these human beings and us. These are regular people. They had the courage to explore their awareness, to evaluate if their current reality matches the vision they had when they started, and then to raise their standards and to decide once and for all, enough is enough. Over and over again, evaluating, am I in alignment with my true priorities? Does my current reality match the life vision I had when I started? And if not, what am I willing to do about it? What am I willing to do about it? Because it's not the external world's job to get in my heart and soul, get in my mind, and know what's out of alignment and make decisions for me. It's up to me. It's up to you. You became self-employed for a reason. You wanted freedom and flexibility. Guess what? You have it. You have freedom to choose, and you have time flexibility. You just need to be willing to claim it, organize it, and be unapologetic in protecting it. Again and again, I see these types of breakthroughs with people I've met through the podcast that share their stories, in the communities I'm a member of, in the stories of my own mentors and coaches that inspire me that if they could do it, so could I. And by the way, we don't just borrow the belief we see in others, we borrow the belief they see in us. And without my mentors, without my coaches, without my community, my friends, my colleagues, getting in the room with people that remind me of my future, I too would stay stuck in my own limitations. We all are limited by the brain. And so as being around those people that not only inspire me because they're doing it, they inspire me because they say to me, you can do it too. Don't be ridiculous and don't play small. So in my own community, the Pursuing Freedom Collective, this is what we're doing. We're linking arms. We're not giving ourselves permission to continue to settle for less than our full potential, which, by the way, most of us have only scratched the surface of our true potential. In fact, many of us are probably only at 10%. There is a limitless, infinite abundance of possibilities, unscripted opportunities, synchronicities, new relationships that are waiting on the horizon for you. So what about you? Are you playing small or are you going big? Do you have people in your corner who are rooting for you? Or are you feeling kind of lonely? Are you trying to run your business on an island? Are you letting the limitations of your mind convince you to play small and stay stuck because it's too scary to leap? When you're ready to turn the page and have your point of no return, we'll be waiting for you inside the collective, arms wide open, ready to give you the resources, the network, the support, and the love to help you believe in and decide to take your own business and life to new heights and to become the hero of your story. Instead of watching everybody else be the hero of theirs, it's time for you to be the hero of yours. It is never too late. I have seen people make a decision, and within 5 years, they've paid off their 3 kids' college tuitions. Make a decision and have a saleable business in less than 3 years. It's never too late. Your time is now to decide, what do you really want? Where are you playing small? What are you willing to do about it? And are you going to invest in yourself to build the life that matches the dream vision you've always had, because you've designed a business that is so well organized to power and fuel that vision that you get to look back and say, oh my gosh, I did it. I didn't believe I could. I didn't know how, but I made a decision, and look at what's unfolded. And if you need help, all you need to do is look back to 10 years ago. Find a time in your life where you were scared and you took the leap anyway, and it turned out to be your best decision. Look at the relationships in your life that came out of synchronicity. You didn't conjure them up and hunt them down with your analytical brain. The stars aligned, your paths crossed, and all of a sudden you have relationships that are supporting you in new ways. It is all there waiting to unfold. So drop that pin in the GPS and ask yourself 10 years from now, what will you wish you'd done? And then contact me. I love hearing from you. If there's a takeaway, if there's an episode, if there's a topic you want to learn more about, I can point you in the right direction. One of my superpowers is connector. And my passion is helping you access that belief within you, and then the confidence, the courage to make the decision to go create that reality that you dream of, because I know it's available for you. So you can find me on Instagram at Pursuing Freedom Official. Shoot me a DM if there was a takeaway, if you felt inspired by something, or if you're committed to taking action on something. Or connect with me on LinkedIn, send me a DM, and I'll send you my Calendly link. We can book a call and connect and see how I can be a resource to you, because I am on a mission to impact the lives of more and more people that are craving a life you don't need a vacation from, because I know from experience it's possible. I know from the last 249 interviews and episodes that it's possible. And I know that you are on the leading edge of the unfolding of the dream life that's going to exceed the wildest expectations you have for yourself. I love you. I appreciate you. I'll see you next time.